What's going on, guys? This is the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith. I'm joined by Ellie Hernandez. I've got the Sunday Night Football game over my shoulder. I'm in a hotel in the desert. And how's it going, man? It's halftime, Cardinals game. I think we pretty much nailed this. If you guys watch our last video, we pretty much nailed this. What are your thoughts really quick on what we've got going on for the current Sunday night game?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing pretty good. I think we're in a good position, however the rest of this game plays out. If Andy Isabella does anything, those lineups are looking pretty. But just want to call out one thing. I did say the score would be 31-27 Cardinals. So as long as the defense gets a second-half shutout, we're good.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm excited.
Also, keep an eye on our fades of the night. Apparently, we're cursing the running backs when it comes to fades of the night. Tonight, we both faded Chris Carson. He left in the first quarter, I think. Last on Sunday night, was it Sunday night? Who do we fade? Oh, Devontae Freeman. We faded Freeman. He got injured. The week before, it was Raheem Mostert. He got injured. So just keep an eye on our fades of the night. And I got a running back in there that you guys might not want to play. Anyways, so let's move on to. We're doing Chicago Bears versus the LA Rams. This is an interesting game. I feel like we've dealt with both of these teams before. So tell Zoe we said hi. Everyone say hi to Zoe. So now we're looking at...
Yeah, she's just running around. She finally started walking.
Nice, dude. Nice. We're looking at a lopsided... I don't get the line here as far as... it's pretty heavily favored towards the Rams. Now, the Rams are obviously a better team, but I don't think Chicago is that bad. You got a -6, the spread, a 44.5 over/under, which, I mean, that might as well. Are we putting kickers and captain for this game? I mean, that's a really low total. What are your first thoughts on the numbers on this game? And are the lines right on this? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this line. I'm going to keep an eye on movement tomorrow, but that seems a little low for these two teams. I think I'm going to have to look a little bit closer into Chicago's defense. I don't know if they've been holding people to that few points. So the LA Rams defense, I'm not sure that they're any good either. So we'll have to keep an eye on it and see how that plays out.
Well, one thing that we can point out here is if you look at the injuries, this is a nice way to transition here. So if we look at the injuries, apparently Khalil Mack is questionable. You got Buster Screen questionable. Basically, a lot of defenders for the Bears are questionable, which I'm assuming that's why this line is so drastic. Plus, Chicago's traveling to LA, which is not ideal. There's no fans, but I don't think it's a huge deal. That could be something to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on the line movement here for this game. We don't have ownership yet. We're recording this obviously on Sunday night. No ownership yet that we can tell. I don't even have projections really yet. You probably have some bottled projections. You're a Roto Grinders guy. What do you have any? Do they have projections up on Lineup HQ yet?
No, they don't.
I have some. I use Fantasy Cruncher. I love Osmo's projections. This isn't a plug. We're not sponsored, but those guys are obviously awesome. He doesn't have anything available yet. So just keep an eye on things. I'm assuming, based on some of the canned projections that I'm seeing, it looks like the Rams, fantasy-wise, are going to be heavily owned as well. There's not a lot of options when it comes to Chicago, at least at the top. And their best players are, you got a guy like Allen Robinson who is at $10,000. That's a big price tag for that guy. So let's move on to what we think ownership could look like. Let me pull up. I don't have a dual monitor set up today. I'm traveling, so we're just gonna ride with what I've got here. Let's take a look at let's just go position by position, unless you have something else to add about what do you think about some potential ownership.
I think I really don't have much to add. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. The pricing is kind of tight again today, so I
Yeah,
think you're going to have to spread out a little bit either way.
you're gonna have to, and with one thing we did with this Seattle versus Arizona game was you might have to find that guy. So far, Isabella doesn't have anything going on, but all he needs is one catch. You got a guy like Dan Arnold, you got Will Disley, you got these kind of guys that if you don't have Tyler Lockett tonight at captain, you're in trouble. But if you fit in some of these other cheap guys, that's how you're going to be able to win first place with a low amount of dupes. So transitioning into this game, there's some opportunity for that. There are some value plays. Let's just start with the quarterback position. You got Jared Goff versus Nick Foles. Goff is at 10.4K, and Nick Foles is at 9.8K. I think they priced Foles reasonably. I don't think he's priced low enough to want to play him too much, in my opinion. I think he's sort of up and down. I don't know if I love him for this game. What are your thoughts on quarterbacks? How are you going to do this? Are you going to fade one quarterback? I think, to me personally, I think this is one of those games where you can go with one quarterback and sort of have your game script go around one guy and then fade the other guy to get some leverage. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat here. Unless there's something that stands out on ownership, I'll probably be fading one of the quarterbacks. And honestly, just based on game script, I might have to go more Nick Foles simply because if the Rams are going to be ahead this whole game, we might need to have his points. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Again, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on ownership, but I don't think I'll have much of both quarterbacks in lineups tonight or tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think, for example, obviously we've got Kyler over my shoulder. We've got Russell Wilson. I was trying to lock those guys in as much as I could, and the pricing was difficult to lock those guys in. This week, I don't think you have to. I think instead of playing Foles, I can just play Allen Robinson, which is funny that Allen Robinson is like $200 more than him. I think you just play him instead and just hope that Robinson catches two touchdown passes and gets 100 yards. Let's move on to our running back position. So we've got David Montgomery. He's not a sexy player at all. You've got Daryl Henderson from the Rams, who is priced up to 8,200. This guy's getting about 50% of the snaps. He's not even, for that price, you would think he'd be getting at least 60, 70% of the snaps. He's not. I don't want to touch this guy at that price tag, especially with the pricing is a little tight. I don't want to touch him. Now, you've got Malcolm Brown at 3,400. Last week he was, I think, 1,600, and I was high on him. I had him as one of my conviction plays as far as for captain, simply because you could really fit in a lot of the pieces around him at that price tag. Now he's priced up to 3,400. I don't know if you need him at that price. I think he's going to have to have a ceiling type game. His ceiling is listed as around 15 points. I don't think that that's enough to be in the optimal at 3,400, maybe. And then you obviously got Cam Akers as well, who's not really getting as many snaps as we'd want. How are you playing the running back situation for this game?
So I'm gonna be pretty heavy on the other side. I'm gonna have a little bit of David Montgomery in here. But hold on, bro. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So David Montgomery, let's look at David Montgomery here. So snaps, I mean, this guy is the workhorse. You've got Ryan Nall as another option. These guys aren't even in my player pool. But 84% of the snaps last week. On the season, he's averaging 66. But with his backup out, there's definitely no reason to. Tariq Cohen. I blanked on his name for a second. With Tariq Cohen out, recently he's getting all the snaps. So, but the game script, if you're projecting that this game is going to be a Rams heavy game, I don't see how you can play a ton of Montgomery, and maybe that's where the public is going to be, so maybe you can get some leverage there. Me personally, I just don't love the running back position in on this slate in general. If anyone, I'd go with some Malcolm Brown scattered in. I don't think I can play Cam Akers that much, simply because if you look at Cam Akers' snaps, it's very inconsistent. You're talking around 20% max for this guy, and that's not enough for me. I know he's $1,000, but I just don't see the upside at all.
No, I agree with you on Cam Akers. It doesn't look like he's going to be working into the offense as often as we thought he was going to be at the beginning of the year. So if I play anybody from the Rams side, it'll probably be Malcolm Brown because of his price. I'm sure that'll take ownership away just because he's twice as expensive as he was. So it'll be a leverage play if I play him. But to your point, right, I don't know how much of the running back situation I'm going to have. And the only reason I'm okay with David Montgomery is I think he's the key to Foles being a good quarterback, right? If they can get him going in the run game and keep the Rams offense off the field, they have a chance to win this. So, it'll be interesting. But that's where I'm at with the running backs.
I just don't feel, roster construction-wise, I don't feel that playing Foles and Montgomery, I mean, obviously, typically on a full slate, you're not playing these kind of non-pass catching running backs with their quarterbacks. When a showdown slate, anything goes. But even to that point, I don't think that Montgomery, even on a showdown slate, can fit in well with Foles. I might limit them unless the ownership's so low where I feel I can get some decent leverage on him. Anyways, let's move on to wide receiver, where this is where things get interesting. We're going to start with Chicago. Now, you got Allen Robinson at $10K, and there's a big drop off. You got $4,400 for Darnell Mooney, who's made himself. He's made it clear that he's the number 2 guy in this team, which is interesting because Anthony Miller was anointed that at the beginning of the year, and even last year he was getting a lot of those. He was getting those number 2 snaps. He hasn't really come through this season, unfortunately, but he's 2,200. I feel like he does have that upside. He has proven that he can have a big game. One guy to keep an eye on, just because of recency bias and because of the fact that Mooney has stepped up to become that number 2 guy. I think Allen Robinson can be in every lineup, in my opinion. I have no problem playing a stud guy, and I'd rather play him over Foles, in my opinion. And then, of course, you got Cordell Patterson, who's just a straight-up dart throw. He's actually the backup running back, and he's getting a decent amount of snaps. He's getting a decent amount of opportunity. This is the guy I just can't quit. He's sort of my Taysom Hill. I can't quit this guy, so I'm going to have some Cordell Patterson. No one's going to own him. He could break the slate. Chances are very, very, very low that he does, but at 1,400, he's 3 catches. If he gets 3 catches and 5 rushes, he's well outperformed his salary, and he has the opportunity. It's not like we're talking about a 4th string tight end or something. This guy gets the ball. What are your thoughts on how are you handling this Chicago wide receivers core?
I'm with you on Allen Robinson. I'll have as much exposure to him as I can possibly. And Darnell Mooney, he's an interesting play. I like him a lot. But his projection is pretty close to Anthony Miller at half the price, or with Anthony Miller being half the price. So I think I will limit having both of those wide receivers in the same lineup. But I'll go heavier based on wherever the ownership projection lands. So if Anthony Miller gets all the love, then I think I'll go heavy Darnell Mooney. But that's where I'm at. I'm not a Cordell Patterson guy. I will live vicariously through you when it comes to him.
Good.
So,
good. It'll save you a couple years on the end of your life. That's for damn sure. Let's move on to the Rams. And in our last show, you had some pretty serious opinions about Cooper Kupp versus Woods, and you were right about it. Cooper Kupp is priced at $9,200, and Woods is priced at $9,000 for some reason. Now, I think recency bias is going to play a part in the fact that Kupp is not going to be highly honed. I think people are not going to pay up for 9,200, and the optimizer is not going to love him because he's less than a point difference projection, and at $200 difference, I mean you could get another player in another position. I just feel like Woods is getting the targets, he's getting the snaps. Kupp could go off. We've seen him do it in the past. But a guy that we should really talk about is Josh Reynolds at 2,800. He caught a touchdown pass last week. I think this guy has upside, and I'm always so surprised because the past few seasons he's done well enough that he gets targets, he gets snaps, but he was always priced around $1,000 or something like that. And he was barely owned, and I was just confused. I was curious as to if the field knew something that I didn't know about him. Apparently not. I think that he's just getting lost in the mix. And at 2,800, I think he is a viable option. You've got Van Jefferson. This is another guy. It's another dart sort of throw, but I feel comfortable. I would feel comfortable if Josh Reynolds stays under 20% owned. I feel comfortable doubling the field on him because he's getting the opportunity. What are your thoughts on how are you going to handle this Rams wide receiver core?
So yeah, I'm going to stick with my previous statements on Robert Woods versus Cooper Kupp.
Dude, hang on a second, dude. You look like HBO, like you were trying to get HBO back in the 90s with the weird, you look fucking weird. But let's just roll with it, dude. Just keep going. Keep going,
bro. I don't even understand why it's coming out like that. I swear to God, I pay so much money for this internet,
bro. I think it's mine.
Call him and yell at him, dude.
I think it's mine. I'm on hotel. Yeah. Okay. Now you're back. You're good. Okay. It's all good. Thanks for rolling with us, guys. By the way, before we get started, we've got some new subscribers. We've got some views lately. We really appreciate it. Please subscribe. Please comment on our videos. We want to actually have some conversation as to what you guys think as well. We're not the experts at the end of the day here. We want to hear about your opinions and talk about it in the future. Go ahead, Ellie.
So yeah, back to the wide receivers. If Cooper comes, God damn,
Cooper Kupp, all right,
comes in. Yeah, I have no. If he comes in a lot lower owned than Robert Woods, then I might pivot to Kupp. Other than that, I like Robert. I thought I'll have some exposure to him. And then the other two guys, Van Jefferson and Simba Webster. Yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel about those wide receivers.
They're not going to be.
It's going to the three guys.
They're not going to be in my player pool for sure. It's going to be Kupp, Woods, Reynolds. That's it. All right, let's move on to tight end now. Some injury news. We didn't really go over injuries because there's nothing really big to point out besides the defense for Chicago. But the only real name here is Tyler Higbee. He did not practice. He's been limited this week. He's questionable for the Bears. Not that he has been really anything to write home about anyways. He's underperformed in every game except for one when he had those 3 touchdown catches against Philly. I'm not in love with Tyler Higbee anyways, but keep an eye on this guy because if people are scared away from him simply because he hasn't been performing, we know he has an upside. So he's a perfect tournament play if his ownership stays low because of the injury designation. You have Gerald Everett at 4,800. His salary has been raised quite a bit. He was 4,600 last week, and then before that, 1,400, 1,000, 200, 1,000. So his in preparation, probably Draftkings boosted his salary up because he would have been a lock button at $1,000 as the starting tight end on a relatively high-powered offense. If Higbee is out, are you pivoting to Everett like probably everybody else will? If Higbee plays, are you going to get any Higbee just because he's going to be lower owned?
Yeah, I'll have some Higbee. I mean, he looks a lot better priced than Jimmy Graham. So just right off the bat, I like Higbee a little bit more. And then if Gerald Everett ends up playing, I'll get some exposure to him. But I'll be very, and I think I just say this on every category now, but I'll be very mindful of the ownership, depending on wherever we land there. That'll dictate whether or not I pivot off of the guys.
So let's move over to Jimmy Graham. Now, obviously, you have some. There's a shitload of tight ends on this team. I don't friggin' know why. I'm not going to touch on the Cole Kmet, the Demetri Harris at this moment because we don't really have projections for them. We don't have ownership yet. Those are guys you can look at, but they're just pure dart throws. We all know that. And on a showdown slate, sometimes you need a guy like that. But for now, we're just going to talk about Jimmy Graham for tight ends. He's 7,200. He's priced up quite a bit. I think people know this guy's name. They know he's generally disappointing when it comes to fantasy, but every once in a while he'll have a 24-point, fantasy output. He'll have a touchdown and a couple receptions. I personally think this guy is going to be so low owned because of that stigma, and also because he's 7,200. I don't think anybody's going to play him. Not to say that he is a good pick, but he does have those weeks where he really can break a slate. Is it going to be this week? I have no idea, but I'm willing to take a flyer on him simply because I think his ownership is going to be pretty low. It doesn't seem like you're too high on Jimmy Graham this week, and I can't blame you.
Yeah, I like a little bit of Jimmy Graham. I'm not going to get too heavy with him, but at the same time, I do like my tight ends in the captain spot, so I might have a couple of those in there just to be safe.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham is still a good tight end, so I still think he can go out there and make some plays. I'm not going to lock him in and get more than probably 25% exposure, but I will have some of them in there.
All right, so kickers and defense. This is a 44.5-point total. Are these guys in play more this time around? Like, when it comes to actually locking in, more than one defense or more than one kicker into a lineup, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, at the end of the day, I think the numbers sort of point to don't play them in the captain. I think that's pretty obvious. Every once in a while, randomly, once a year, or twice a year, you'll get an optimal with a kicker who has like 3 or 4 50-yarders. We're not ever going to tell you to put a captain or to put a kicker in the captain spot, but what are your thoughts on this week with a low total? I think they're going to be over-owned, in my opinion, and you could pivot away from them just because of that.
So I think kickers are in play. Personally, I will never play Eddie Pinheiro or whoever the kicker is for the Chicago Bears. I think that's where you go to have your career die. I am not sure how it's possible to find so many kickers who can miss field goals. So they end up in Chicago.
Double doink.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with that team and their kickers. I think their defense is in play. I think the Rams' defense is in play. But again, I'm not going to get too crazy on it because I still think the over is going to hit in this game. Who scored right now?
Kyler rushing touchdown. It was close. He almost dropped it, but I think he's going to be okay.
And just so everybody is aware, that means I'm one touchdown away from my score, 31-27. So,
if it's a shutout.
I will cry if that hits because there's no reason that it should.
Okay, so and obviously if you got Khalil Mack and you've got some of these guys from the Bears defense out, I just think that helps the other team's offense obviously more. I don't know that I can play a whole lot of Bears. I'm just going to look at ownership. I usually just let it ride, like whatever the crunches sort of spit out when it comes to leverage, when I bring it in and look at dupes and all that stuff into Excel. I just sort of let it ride when it comes to defenses. I'm not actually going out and looking for defensives and kickers. I usually end up with about 5%, 15%, something like that. All right, so
if I have a kicker or defense, at least defense, in my lineup, it's because I specifically chose it and built it a certain way.
Exactly. So. Okay, so let's move on to our fate of the night. We teased you guys with this. We've got Daryl Henderson, and I'm sorry, Daryl, or Darrell, however you say it. I'm sorry that I just cursed you for tomorrow night. I apologize that you're going to leave in the second quarter with a hamstring injury. Sorry about that, but I'm not playing you because you're expensive and you get 50% of the snaps. And yeah, anyways, Daryl Henderson, don't love him. I don't know anybody that would in this spot. I mean, he is the starting running back on a team that's heavily favored, but I just don't see it happening. And you guys are probably going to replay this back to me and laugh at me when he has 3 rushing touchdowns, but I'm just going with my gut, and I'm going with the pricing. I don't like Daryl Henderson. Ellie, you have some sort of personal vendetta against Cooper Kupp. What did he do to you? Did he threaten your family? What is going on here?
I don't know. I don't know how I can answer that without being just. Anyways, look, man, I just don't think he's a great receiver. He's absolutely awesome. But first of all, I don't think Jared Goff is any good. He had one good year, and he continues to do okay. But let's keep in mind, LA has played pretty much the NFC East so far. So it's not like they're out here crushing teams that are pretty good. So that's where I'm at with it. And Robert Woods is a more athletic receiver. He's healthier, and by healthier, he hasn't torn his ACL. And I think he has more value just because of his diversity in the position. So he can run he can run the ball. He's going to get carries. He could throw the ball. Who knows? He's essentially Jarvis Landry, but faster, and his teammates love him. So I love him too.
Yeah, I
hate Cooper Kupp.
I think the clear choice is Robert Woods. I mean, we talked about this last week or whenever we did a Rams Showdown show. I think his Kupp had a great year last year. He was the number 1 guy last year. But like I said, with Woods, he's got the rushing upside. Mm-hmm. I know it's only a couple times a game, but you saw it last week. He had a couple end arounds. He had a couple of reverses. The guy gets the ball just more. He touches the ball more. He gets more catches. He's involved in the offense more. I want that guy, and especially if he's a couple $100 cheaper than Cooper Kupp and potentially lower ownership, we'll see. I'm going to go with that guy for sure. Definitely. We're on the same page. All right, so now we're going to go to our taking a stand at captain. This is our captain choice. Don't laugh at me. All right, people in the audience, Ellie, don't laugh at me. I just think that Jimmy Graham is a sneaky captain play. He is expensive, but I think you can, he's cheaper. He's the cheapest guy with medium upside, and by medium I mean he can score 2 touchdowns, and he in my opinion is going to be super low owned at captain. No one wants to touch this guy. We've seen him catch 4 balls for 15 yards and 2 touchdowns. That might be all you need in a low-scoring game like this. I want to fade, me personally, I'm fading Nick Foles, and I'm going to go with his pass catchers to get a couple big touchdowns or big games, and I'm going to fade him just to save the salary. So for me, Jimmy Graham, I'm guessing he's going to be less than 10% in the captain, probably closer to 5% in the captain, just kind of knowing how these things go. I feel like 5% is right around where he should be, maybe even less. And because of his price at $7,400, nobody wants to pay up for him. I think you should take a couple shots at this guy. We've seen the Robert Tunyons, or I guess he wants to go by Tonyan. We've seen these tight ends break out, and especially in a lower scoring game, if he catches one of the only touchdown passes in the red zone of this game, he could break the slate. We've already talked about Robert Woods, but just tell me what you think, reasons being why you would put him at captain and not just in the flex.
I like Robert Woods a lot, man. I don't think he's going to be a very high on captain because of where he sits with his price tag, and people are probably going to go up to Cooper Kupp. And I expect one of the quarterbacks to be pretty chalky here in the captain spot. But I think, for the most part, I think Robert Woods is kind of self-explanatory, right? I mean, you're going to get a decent amount of targets, and if he gets 2 touchdowns, I think Tyler Lockett, that's the same situation that you have the opportunity to put yourself in. Now, I do want to go back to your call here, too, for a second, though. I love the Jimmy Graham call. I just don't think we should be overexposed to him, but I think you can get a couple unique builds that still give you a competitive edge with Jimmy Graham at captain. So I will have some there, and I agree with that decision entirely.
So an interesting thing to talk about is sometimes you'll end up with a guy, like I'll have 4 or 5 lineups at a 20, like for example with Jimmy Graham as the captain, right? But I basically fade him in the flex, and the reason behind that is I'm assuming he's going to have the best game on the slate, or for his price allow for a roster construction that's different. So I'm playing him at captain only because I think he can catch two touchdowns. I think he can get 5 receptions. And I think by having him there at captain, his ownership is low enough to allow for a unique roster construction. I probably will only have him in 1 or 2 lineups as the flex because I'm banking on him going off. I don't want him to just have an average game. And if he does go off, I want him in the captain spot in a low-scoring game. So anyways, that's just my thoughts on when it comes to that. A guy like Robert Woods, I'm going to have him in almost every lineup. I'm going to have him in. Yeah. If he's not in captain, he's going to be in the flex for me. So let's final thoughts here on this game. It feels like a shit fest to me. I don't even know how to predict it. Obviously, Vegas thinks this is going to be a lopsided game. I don't really think it's going to be. I think it's going to be closer than we think it's going to be. These are two teams who underperform quite a bit. The question to you is, can Nick Foles actually perform up to his Super Bowl year in this particular game? Can he throw 2 or 3 touchdowns, or is this just going to be a game manager sort of situation for him?
I think he has the ability to do it, and I think this is a good opportunity to put that on display. Having his wide receiver core healthy is kind of a big deal. I don't think they've had all 3 receivers at the same time. And I think having Mooney and Miller gives them a pretty decent, option there coming out of the second and third spot. I think Nick Foles can put up some yards, but I don't know if it's going to happen, man. He's better coming off the bench, so it's going to be a gut check. I'm going to look to see if there's any line movement, but I don't know how much I'm going to bank on Nick Foles having it. But I will have a couple lineups just because he can't. So,
all right, we talk about this every week. Really quick, talk about roster construction strategy when it comes to stacking. Whether it's 3-3, 4-4-2s, 2-4s, 5-1s, etc., etc. Tell us what that means. If you're just tuning in and you're new to Showdown, give us a heads up on what your strategy is and what's the best leverage when it comes to allocating 4 positions to one team and 2 positions to the other team. What is the best? Do you play 3-3s? Do you stick with 4-4-2s? What are your thoughts on the whole stacking?
So this is just a personal preference. I don't really run 3-3s unless I'm projecting that the ownership is going to be lopsided towards one team, right? If it's going to be more balanced ownership, then I'm going to be running 4-2s primarily. And personally, we talked about it a little bit on the last show, and one of the things that is hard to get different when you're running a 4-2 or even a 5-1. Now 5-1 gets a little risky unless you're preparing for a certain type of game. But a 4-2 you can do all right and still make some decent money without having to get too crazy different. And sometimes that's the difference between playing a $200 guy that may not see the field versus a $1,200 guy, is being able to have that 4 stack as opposed to getting different by going on a complete dart. So that's been my method recently, and it's been working all right. I just need to get in the top 1% on one of these nights, and I think we'll be good.
Now, are you setting these rules within your optimizer? Are you actually setting stack rules that you want 4 players from one team? Are you specifying which team you want those 4 players from, or are you just letting it ride?
Yeah, I'm absolutely specifying which players I want. So I'll do a bunch of builds at 4-2, and then I'll lock the captain that I want. And then I'll just crank out as many of those and find the lineups that I like. and then I'll do it over and over again until I have a handful of lineups that I really want, and then I'll put them into the duplicator generator, whatever it is, and then see how many lineups we're projected to duplicate with.
All right, so take us out with a prediction on this game. It's a 44.5 total. What are your thoughts? Who's winning this game? And are you putting any money on this game? You're in Indiana, man. You can bet on this shit. I'm in Los Angeles. I can't.
Yeah, I don't think I will. This has the potential to be a very weird and sloppy game. So yeah, I think I'm going to shy away from betting on it from just a regular betting perspective. As far as my prediction, I think, I think that the Rams win. I think they win fairly handedly. This should be 28-17.
Yeah, this feels like a Bears, win this 24-20 or 24 to, a random field goal seals the deal, and it's sort of it's not an entertaining way to end the game. You know how you get a team down by 1 point, they're on the opposing team's 30-yard line, they run the clock down, they kick a field goal with no time left. That's what it feels like to me this game's going to be. I don't feel like the Rams they deserve to have that sort of those sort of odds. What is it, 72% win probability at those odds at -2 something, 240? I think that's ridiculous. It's probably because of the Bears defense, but to me, I think it's a 23-20, 23-21. Bears eke this one out. All right, guys, thank you so much. We're going to get out of here. We're trying to keep these shows a little bit quicker because we just shoot the shit a little bit too much. Ellie and I are buddies. I don't get to see him. He lives across the country, so we're just shooting the shit, talking. But we're going to try to make these shows under 45 minutes from now on. But anyways, please leave us some comments. We want to know what your thoughts are. We want to know what your favorite captains are. Please subscribe. Please like our videos. We really, really appreciate it. We're doing a show every Showdown show.
These are our Twitter handles.
Yeah, hit us up on Twitter. We're pretty active. We don't have as many followers as we want. So hit us up. Let's talk about who you think is the best captain for this next show. And thanks a lot, guys. We will talk to you for Thursday Night Football. See you guys later.